No, we'll bring in Mirjam Swanson. Mirjam, we apologize for our technical difficulties on that. I was starting with, as we bring you in, just, part of your job is to find these stories, to chase the story. Everybody is, where's Kawhi going? Just the quest of trying to figure that out. How difficult of a chore was that for you?
Well, I mean, I don't think. With this one, it was impossible almost, right? Because nobody knew. Everybody thought he was going anywhere but the Clippers. So, it was a tough nut to crack for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's where we had a lot of people who I would say are credibly sourced. They were saying, "Oh, he's going to the Lakers." No, 99% sure he's going to Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
The Clippers are probably out, and I don't think they had bad information. I just think that was the element of Kawhi Leonard, the uncertainty of what he really wanted to do. So ultimately, Mirjam, how surprised were you that he's now a Clipper?
Well, now that we've had a couple days to sort of process it, it all makes sense again. I mean, this seems like where he wanted to go in the beginning, and he seems like a kind of a straightforward guy from all I know. And if this is where he wanted to be, he found a way to really make it work. Obviously. And I guess the fact that it sort of took so long was an indication that, the Clippers were working on something behind the scenes, obviously. So, it makes sense now. And it was sort of, and it was either, no, he wasn't coming to the Clippers, and yes, he was going to Toronto, or going to stay in Toronto, or going to choose the Lakers, because those options would have made sense too. Or, the radio silence was because there was something brewing, and it turned out there was something very big brewing.
Traditionally, the Lakers are the team that everybody looks at in LA, but really, when you look over the last half decade or so, the Clippers have really been the better run organization, and especially when you enter Jerry West into the conversation, do you think that's what really swung Kawhi's decision to choose the Clippers over the historically superior Lakers?
It can't hurt. I mean, Steve Ballmer's presence there and sort of his vision for his team, and the fact that he doesn't want to tank, like he wanted to rebuild but remain competitive and put a good, fun team out on the floor, which they did. And just sort of his competitive spirit, and then that kind of goes from there. And obviously, the logo is hyper respected among everyone in basketball. So having him around and his magic touch helps. But yeah, is that why Kawhi picked the Clippers? It's hard to say. I mean, I talked to Kawhi at a Raptors shoot-around earlier in the year, and he mentioned that he grew up as a 76ers fan and not as a Lakers fan because he was a big AI guy, apparently. I at that point I was like, well, maybe he really is interested in the Clippers. Maybe it isn't a Lakers thing. Like most kids in LA, they're Laker fans. Right. So, but not so much anymore because, as you mentioned, Lob City won a lot of young hearts and minds, and the Lakers, until last year, weren't all that exciting, and even last year were a little dysfunctional. So, yeah, we'll see.
Mirjam, for 35 years, the Clippers have basically been the perennial stepchild to the Lakers in the city of Los Angeles. For the very first time, LA with both teams is kind of at the epicenter of the NBA. Talk about what you think that's going to do as far as the vibe goes with finally, after 35 years, having a legit Lakers-Clippers rivalry.
Oh, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be so much fun. And they play in the same building. Their locker rooms are just down the hall from each other. They all see each other around town. It still is a Lakers town, so I'm very curious to see, what the overall reaction is, and if Clippers coverage increases, on local, among the sports radio folks like yourselves, and the like, and just kind of what the vibe is. I'm really interested to see how many more Clipper fans there's going to be now. And I think there will be some, but I think Laker fans now are going to look at the Clippers as a different kind of rival than before, and more of a rival. Even though the Clippers have been better lately, I feel like LA is, the Laker fans, still have kind of, they're the Clippers, they're fine. But now I think they're having sort of a reaction to this, and that they know that they have to, kind of battle for LA.
Mirjam Swanson joining us here on Sports 1140 KHTK, covers the Clippers and the NBA for the Southern California News Group. So all along in this process, Mirjam, we heard the Clippers have money for two max guys. They're gonna chase down two guys, and then when it kind of got quiet here, Well, they ultimately land Kawhi, but what none of us saw coming was Paul George. How did this materialize, and what do you think that partnership will look like?
I think I heard you guys talking about it, just sort of the defensive prowess that these gentlemen bring along with Pat Beverly. It's going to be kind of scary. So that's pretty awesome. And as far as the materializing, I mean, the two slots was always, Gallinari would have to be traded for that to happen. So, we were waiting to see if that would happen. Very few, there was a little bit of, Jimmy Butler seemed like an option at some point, and then obviously he, wanted to go to Miami. There were some mentions of Bradley Beal, and he wondered if, would that be the right fit and right person, and was that going to be who would bring Kawhi? And there were a few people who mentioned other alternatives, including Paul George, maybe if they could swing a trade for that, but it seemed impossible. Why would Oklahoma City give up Paul George? But apparently, if the asking price is sweet enough, and Paul George is asking to leave, it's possible.
As far as Kawhi goes, I know you said he's kind of a difficult guy to figure out. I had felt, Mirjam, that if he chose the Lakers, or I should back up, I felt like his likability score was as high as it ever was. He goes to Toronto, he plays his season through there, he wins a championship. People are talking about him maybe being the best player in the league. But when the Lakers rumors started coming around, I thought, boy, if he joins Anthony Davis and LeBron, where would that just chop him down as far as where his likability goes? Instead, he kind of chose his own route, goes to the Clippers, and even kind of how the Clippers have been viewed over the years, like Jay mentioned earlier, under the Lakers. It almost feels like he keeps that likability score. He did it his own way, and he's going to try to build this franchise that has looked for help. And if he does it, maybe his legend even increases. Do you think that was even something he thought about, that, hey, I'm still going to be kind of perceived in a way, and I'm going to do this my own way?
I would have thought about it. Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't wait to ask him and see if he tells us, exactly what his thought process to this whole thing was. Yeah, I think nationally and more broadly, I think it's this is a good thing for Kawhi's image. And talking to folks up in Canada, it seems like they're able to stomach the idea of him coming back to Southern California and coming home. And then going to the Clippers. Whereas if he had selected the Lakers, they would have been a super team, and they just, they would not have been so happy about it for some reason, and then just the Laker thing. I don't know. People didn't want him joining up with the Lakers. I think in Southern California, the reaction might be a little different. I've been at a Dodger game where Chris Paul was there and got booed heartily. And he didn't even choose the Clippers as, the NBA traded him there. It wasn't like he chose to be there. So, I'm curious to see what the reaction around the city is to Kawhi, especially after the long week that everyone had waiting for him, to make his call. So I think broadly, yeah, I think it's a great thing for his image. I'm sure New Balance is happy that he's in LA, although they could have had all of Canada. So yeah, I don't know. I think this fits Kawhi, and it's a great story.
Mirjam, to kind of follow up on that, Kawhi had obviously been linked to the Clippers for a good year. Prior to re-signing with OKC, Paul George had been linked to the Lakers, now kind of does an about-face and joins Kawhi with the Clippers. Do you think there's any aspect of those guys teaming up with the Clippers was the idea that they could really cement a legacy by being the team that led the Clippers to a championship and kind of taking out Big Brother, the Lakers, and really trying to cement the Clippers as maybe the go-to team in LA? Obviously, the Lakers have a lot of history there, but as Kyle mentioned earlier, over the past half decade, the Clippers have been the better team and now are en route to truly be the better team in LA.
Seems as though. I mean, the Lakers, still have LeBron and Anthony Davis and some other, and Boogie and some other pieces. So, and the West is going to be really, really good this year. So, nothing is given. But, yeah, I mean, Doc Rivers has talked about, how you really win over a fan base, and he's, it's pretty simple. You win championships. And they're in position to, actually think that is capable, that they're capable of doing that. So, yeah, if this group and these two dudes are able to, win some titles for the Clippers, it would do a lot to sort of cement their place in Los Angeles, which has always been a Lakers town. And that would just be, iconic. That would be really, really special. And, what an opportunity in front of them.
Is there any acceptable result to this outside of a championship, or do they need to win a title or multiple titles for this to be considered a successful move?
That's such a good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I've been talking to a lot of Clipper fans over the last few days, and they're just in this place where they still expect everything to go wrong because this is how it's been for so long. So, if they make a final and don't win a championship in the next couple of years, does that satisfy the fan base? Possibly. They haven't won titles yet, but I know interiorly the Clippers organization is definitely set on building a quote-unquote sustainable championship contender. And I know Steve Ballmer wants to win. He's competitive. He wants to win. So I think the pressure's on. I think that this is a group that's capable of winning the whole thing, and that's going to be their job.
Well, I think it's going to be fun for a lot of us to monitor, to watch. The landscape of the NBA certainly has a lot to focus on LA. Mirjam, thank you so much for joining us, and I know we'll be talking to you again down the line.
Awesome. Well, you guys have a good day.
The Drive.